So alright, today's video should be rather quick and simple. I want to show you how to set up the multiplayer mod for Kerbal Space Program, known as Dark Multiplayer, as well as how to set up and create your own Dark Multiplayer server using any Android phone or tablet. With that said, let's start with the easiest part of this whole setup first, getting the mod into our game. So what you want to do is head on over to the Dark Multiplayer website and download the client. Once you have the client downloaded, you should be able to open it up and it should look something like this. Just navigate inside the folders till you find a folder under game data called Dark Multiplayer. Once you found it, just click and drag it into your game data folder where your game's actually located. Once you have the mod in place, it should look something like this. Believe it or not, the mod for the game is actually done. That's all you needed to do to actually install it. However, there is one thing to note, and this is only for Linux users. If you're running Kerbal Space Program through Wine or Lutris under Linux, installing this mod will have the menu pop up, but you will not have text. You need to make sure you install core fonts through Winetricks in order to have the text show up in game for this particular mod. Hopefully some point in the future they can fix that. But as of right now, it's a simple fix nonetheless. Just install Microsoft Core fonts and this mod should work fine for you under Linux. But with that said, let's move on to the challenging part now, making our own Dark Multiplayer server. And like I said at the start of the video, we're going to be doing this on an Android phone. Well, it could be done on really anything that's Android based. You just need to install a program called Termux. I'll have a link in the description to where you can go to the Google Play Store and download Termux. But basically, once you downloaded it, it should look something like this. From here, what we need to do is copy the link to the DMP server. And once you have that copied, just go into Termux, type in wget, and paste a link. It should look something like this. Once you have it pasted in, just hit enter, and that will begin to download the DMP server. After it's downloaded, if you wish, you can hit Ctrl-L to clear the screen, and you basically just downloaded the server, so what we need to do is extract it. Right now it's a zip file. If I were to list my file directories out here, you can see it. It's pretty much just a zip, so what we need to do is type in unzip, then type in DMP server, then hit enter. Once that's done, we should now have a new folder, and we can delete the zip if we wish. To delete the zip, all you need to do is type in rm-tac-r dmpserver.zip. Hitting enter on that, the file should then be deleted and all we'll have now is the actual DMP server folder. Believe it or not, we're almost there. What we need to do now is install a package called Mono. To install this, you need to type in pkg install mono. Once you type that in and you hit enter, it should actually install this package. Now I haven't used Termux on my phone in a while, so I'm expecting this to download a little slow, and you should also expect it to take up a pretty sizable amount of space. So be sure to have at least a gig or two on your phone. Basically what Mono will let us do is run that .exe in the DMP server, and that will then get our server up and running. Alright, that took some time, but now that Mono is installed, I'm gonna just clear my screen out. And from here, there's an optional package we can get. I like to have this so that when I close out of Termux or turn my screen off, the server will basically keep running. And that program is called Screen. I've talked about it before, and yes, even on Termux, Screen is available. So to install that, you just type in pkg install just like before, then type in Screen. After that's installed, we should be able to go and up and run our server. But like I said, Screen is optional, so if you don't want it, you don't need it. So now that we got everything downloaded, we should be able to just navigate into our DMP server folder by typing in cd dmp then server. From here, we should be able to run our DMP server just by typing in mono, then dmp server.exe. That's all you need to run the server. However, I like to run this through a program called Screen. So I'm just going to type Screen in before that command. and that should then start our server inside of a screen session. What this means is we can minimize the server session and do other stuff if we needed to, such as modify or remove flags and various things like that. But like I said, you don't need screen if you don't want it. Plus, if you have screen, you should be able to then minimize Termux and keep your server running as well. But yeah, as you can see, the server is up and running, and that was basically it. However, we still need to port forward it, and we need to run one more command in Termux, just because some phones will like to shut the server off when the screen gets turned off. We need to make sure that doesn't happen, and there's a simple Termux command that will allow us to do just that. So with that said, I'm going to stop my server by hitting Control-C. That will then exit the server and close our screen session. And from here, the command I want you to run is called termux-wake-lock. It took me a minute to remember it, but basically, once you have that typed in and you hit enter, a notification should pop up. I think you'll have to run this every time before you run the server, but I could be wrong. Anyway, once the pop-up pops up, just hit allow, and what we essentially did here is now that when we run our server, by running screen mono DMP server within that folder, it should keep running no matter the phone's state. So we should be able to turn the screen off and our server should continue running. But with that said, that's it. That's how you run a dark multiplayer server on your phone or tablet. Now, to actually get this hooked up to the internet so we could play across the internet requires port forwarding. However, if you just want to play locally, the server should work just as is. Now, the next few steps here to get this up and running over the internet can vary. There's multiple different ways to do this. I'm going to go through the simplest way, which is just port forwarding, but you can get this server up and running through Hamachi, which is a lot more safer and more secure over port forwarding. However, with that said, I'm just going to be doing it through port forwarding because that's what's simplest for me right now. Now with that said, since port forwarding can have some sensitive information in it, for the next part of the video here, I'm going to be taking screenshots of my router's homepage. That way I can block out sensitive information and stuff like that. So forgive me that it's not really a live video, but the general steps we need to take here should be about the same for most routers. Essentially what we need to do is head on over to our router's homepage. Usually on the router there's a sticker that will have your admin information as well as the IP address just right on the router itself. In my particular case it's 192.168.254.254 that I need to head on over to in order to tinker about in my router. After I got that typed in, I logged in with the admin information, and basically all I did was click on the firewall section within the router's menu. From here in the firewall section, all I did was click on the port forwarding menu, and in this particular menu, all you need to do is click on the select LAN device and select the device that our server is running on. In my particular case, it's my AO3, so 174 here. And basically what I need to do is type in the port number that was up and running on our server earlier, which by default for dark multiplayer is 6702, I believe. So what you need to do is just type in 6702 into all these fields. And then change the protocol from TCP to TCP, UDP. After you did that, just click apply, the router should reboot, and then the port forwarded settings should then take effect. Believe it or not, that is it. That is the whole process for port forwarding, and we are now done with it. Now if you're wondering how we connect up to our device after we port forwarded, all you need to do is back on your phone, type in what is my IP address into your web browser basically, and you want to use your public IP address. That public IP address will then go into the client on Dark Multiplayer, and that is how you're going to end up connecting to this server. But like I said, if you just want to play locally, you don't have to do all this, but if you want a friend to play, let's say in another country or another state or something, all you need to do is give them your public IP address, and then they can type that into their Dark Multiplayer client, then connect. Now there's one last thing before I go that I want to talk about, and that is the Dark Multiplayer server itself. There are some things we need to configure in the server. Just as is, it should work. However, you might want to then customize your server's name, the amount of asteroids that will spawn, and stuff like that. To do that, we just need to close the server if you happen to have it still running. Then you want to then type in ls. Then you want to cd into the config folder, I believe. From in here, we should have a settings.txt file and a few other text files. You can feel free to change any of these you want, like if you want to ban certain players, you can do it from here. However, what we're after is the settings text, so I want to edit that first by typing in nano. I think it comes by default in Termux. If not, just install it like we did those other packages from before. Anyway, I'm just going to type nano and then settings.txt. From here, we can change the port number if we wanted to, what mods are allowed or not allowed, how many asteroids spawn, the subspace modes. By default, warp mode, subspace is pretty good. From here, we can also change it to sandbox, science, or career. So if you want to play a science mode with a friend, be sure to change it from sandbox to career. That will limit the parts you got, and you have to collect science in order to get parts. You know, just a typical science mode type of thing. You can also change your game's difficulty, but what I'm after is the server name. I recommend changing the server name, as well as maybe the amount of players that join. If it's just you and your buddy, you don't need access for like 30 other people to join, for instance. Alright, right here's the server name. It just says equals DMP server. I'm just going to change this to DTPK's server. And I could change the player count right under there too if I wanted to. By default, it's a maximum of 20. But if your device is well, how do I rephrase this? If your device happens to be slow, or perhaps you just want to play only with your friend, maybe changing it from 20 to 2 is the best. But I'm going to keep mine default for now. You can also select a screenshot directory. So if you want screenshots to be stored on your server, you can select where those go to if you want. And I think that's basically all I want to change. And to save the text file after we edit it, just hit Ctrl X, then Y, then Enter. That is essentially it. However, if you use screen, like I said, it's optional, but if you use screen, let's say, and you happen to accidentally hide your server, to hide the running terminal, it's just Ctrl A and D, I believe. Control A, D, there. Yeah, that will hide the server. As you can see, I'm back to a terminal, but the server is still running. To get back into the server, all you need to do is type in screen tac D, tac R, and that will bring it back up. Like I said, if you're not using screen, you don't need to know this, but if you've never used screen, it's good to know that information. But yeah, that is it for the video. To end things off, I'm going to show you guys me connecting up to this server from my phone, or perhaps from my tablet, I'm not sure yet. But either way, I'm going to show you me connecting up to my publicly hosted game that I port forwarded. But with that said, that is it for this mod. It's as simple as that, and I hope this video helped you out. So with that said, I'm going to leave it off here now. DTPK signing off. Peace. But overall, for a first attempt at a Xbox 360 enclosure for this thing, it came out pretty good in my opinion. Feels no different than if I were to use a Bluetooth controller on my Xbox One or my PS4.